welcome to CrossTalk. My name is Kevin Tocci. I will be your host for the next 30 minutes. The idea of this particular show, we use this as a vehicle to deliver information to you, the resident, who we proudly serve both in Whitman and in Hanson. And the conversations, the topics can vary. It could be about a new business. It could be information that needs to be shared with you about something happening in one of the two communities. It could be a get to know you segment. It could be political because let's not forget we do have annual town elections. So maybe it's a chance for you to get to know some of the candidates. Today, we are privileged to be able to speak with Lincoln Heineman. Lincoln is the new town administrator in the town of Whitman. Lincoln, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I'm very pleased to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
I think the first thing that we do right out of the gate is for those who may or may not know who you are, give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, no, thank you so much. Well, first, let me say I'm so thrilled to be in Whitman. It's such an exciting place to be. There's so many great things that happen on a community level here, and I'm really excited to be part of that going forward. So I've been the town administrator here now, going into my fourth week, and I came directly from as the finance director for the town of Hanover. I served there for a little more than 3 years. Primarily, I had worked obviously on finance and all the various financial operations. Also, really focused in on the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and that's certainly something that we can probably talk about more today, as you and I are talking, Kevin, and talking about the local response to that and what we can do locally. Briefly, a little bit about my background before that. I really am focused on municipal government, and it's the area that I really enjoy being in. Every day I get up. I love being in municipal government, and really primarily because it's so close to the people who are actually being governed. And I love that, having that person-to-person interaction. I grew up in Scituate. I'm a lifelong South Shore resident, live in Scituate now, and really got into municipal government before my service in the town of Hanover as a volunteer for the town of Scituate on its advisory committee, which is the equivalent of the town of Whitman's finance committee. So focusing on finance and doing that volunteer work, I realized that I really wanted to pursue it professionally.
What would you say your first month, your first 4 weeks have been like as serving as the town administrator?
Sure. Well, it's I'd say first of all, in getting to know the staff at town hall and then also throughout the town, it's became clear so quickly what a strong team we have in town, and that's a really exciting prospect. To be working with this strong team and building that teamwork going forward, and continuing to build that team, as we go forward. I'd say the biggest two things that I've been focused on right away. I guess I should say three things. Number one, obviously, meeting with the departments and particularly the department heads to make sure that I know what their ongoing issues are right now, and to get, to the extent that I'm not already familiar with them, to get familiar with them and to move forward collaboratively with them and with the Board of Selectmen on that. The two other, most pressing items from my perspective on my plate, and again, in working very closely with the Board of Selectmen on addressing these issues. Number one, obviously, the town's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've all certainly suffered and had setbacks and difficulties during the last year, but certainly making sure that first of all, that the town is doing everything it can to assist in getting people vaccinated who are eligible through the current phased program. And while, originally we had this vaccination program which was very strong and in place through our fire department and our health department folks, while we're certainly disappointed that folks may know that all of those vaccinations are now going to mass vaccination sites rather than directly coming to the communities. We're still committed to doing our part locally to support everyone who is eligible for a vaccination right now and wants to be vaccinated, doing everything we can to support people getting vaccinated so we can move forward. A corollary of that, certainly one of the big focuses that I want to focus on is economic development and making sure that the town of Whitman is doing everything it can to support our local businesses which have suffered so much in the last year, and making sure that they have the support from the town to survive and thrive. And then lastly, the third item is obviously budget. Every year we have our municipal budget. The budget year begins fiscal year 2022 on July 1st. So obviously deep in that as we prepare for town meeting, which is now currently scheduled for May 3rd, but of course may change due to the pandemic.
It's interesting you touched upon meeting with your department heads. How important is it to be able to connect and understand the needs of your department heads, working together as a team, because nothing gets done without a great team.
Absolutely. And I come back to what I said. It is so clear that we have such a strong and committed team in Whitman, and obviously the department heads are a key part of that. So certainly have been getting out there, intend to certainly meet regularly with them, both one-on-one and then also obviously in a group to address town-wide issues. But I think that close contact and close regular contact is really critical to making sure that that the most important issues are coming up to the top so that they can be addressed by myself and the Board of Selectmen, and then conversely, that the important policies, again, as set by the Board of Selectmen, are happening at the departmental level.
You talk about department heads. Now, have you had a chance? Whitman has a shared school district with Hanson. Have you had a chance to meet with whether it's elected school officials or school officials? You get a better understanding as to where things stand with them.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up. So with the elected folks, have had several conversations with members of the school committee, and it's obviously hard to, as much as I like meeting in person, it's obviously hard to do that right now during the pandemic, as we all know. But certainly I'm finding other ways to connect with folks and making sure that I understand what their concerns are, especially in the context of the budget. I'll also had one-on-one meetings with John Stanbrook, who is the Hanson Town Administrator, and speaking with him about how we can collectively support the school district, and then obviously with the school department leadership, and most importantly, the Superintendent Simonak, and determining and learning what their needs are, both in the current fiscal year and the upcoming fiscal year, and how the towns can help to support those needs.
Interesting you bring up Mr. Stanbrook, knowing that he's relatively new to his position. I interviewed him recently with the Hanson Selectman Chair, Kenny Mitchell, and you were brought up during that conversation where I said that both of you are relatively new, but both of you, your expertise or the areas that you seem to thrive in is finances. Mm-hmm. And I asked him that. I asked you that. How good is it knowing that you have, a community, a partner, a stakeholder, a neighboring stakeholder, that you can have a conversation with and know that there are likenesses between the two of you?
Oh, I think it's very important, and I think having that basis in finances is so important. So often, there are so many things that we do in municipal government and so many aspects of people's lives that we touch and assist folks in, but it all comes back to budgeting. And that the budget document is always a policy document, right? The budget document is always a document that telegraphs what is most important to the community and what the policy goals and objectives are. So certainly, as I mentioned, already have had in just the first few weeks several great conversations with John about several different topics, and I'm certainly looking forward to working with him together. I know that the somewhat recent past, certainly the past, but the somewhat recent past is one of some strife between the two towns and relative to the school district, just because of the assessment issue. Not because of any individual personalities, but just sort of institutionally, there was this stress there. And one thing that I am really excited about is the fact that we are both new town administrators. Um, again, not based on anyone's personality, but because that assessment issue has been resolved, I think it allows for a special opportunity with two new town administrators to work together collaboratively going forward, without some history.
You teased it a bit in regards to talking about COVID-19, talking about businesses, the budget process. You're probably hip deep in it right now as you're looking at the town's numbers. How is COVID having an effect? Now, again, you're not new to numbers and finances. The community you served in was probably dealing with it. Coming to a new community, how is COVID having an effect on putting together real numbers for fiscal 22?
I think the biggest effect that it's had is the uncertainty. We've all experienced so much uncertainty in our lives. Um, Business owners, teachers, parents of kids, all of us, have experienced this uncertainty. So I think that's the biggest factor, is that uncertainty at the local level in knowing how school is going to be reopening, what exactly the cost will be for that, and what portion of that will be assessed to the two towns, to Whitman and Hanson. But I think also part of it is, while we're certainly appreciative of our federal partners, there have been federal stimulus monies, and certainly our county and state partners. Those monies have flowed through the county, and certainly state partners have been a critical part of that. And we're extremely appreciative of those funds. Yeah, I think the timing, and there's no right answer to solve this, but sometimes the timing of when those funds come in, particularly from the federal government, can also make it difficult in that planning and execution of plans. So it sort of adds to that uncertainty. But certainly it appears as though there may be another federal stimulus, another piece of federal stimulus legislation, and certainly we're keeping a close eye on that. And certainly I'm committed to attracting every dollar that we can to Whitman to help address our crisis locally.
It's interesting. So I kind of kicked down the list talking about department heads, talking about school officials. You have to work also hand in hand with various boards and committees. You work one on one with the board of selectmen. You also have to kind of keep an eye on what's going on with the finance committee. Talk to me what it's been like to attend those particular meetings, and what you've been able to glean from what's going on in this community so far.
Sure. Well, one thing I wanted to do right away, and I'm very pleased that the committee and Chair Rick Anderson of the Finance Committee were amenable to this. I really appreciate that work towards partnership. One of the things that I wanted to do right away was to go to every Finance Committee meeting that I could. Traditionally, they had been scheduled on the same evening as Board of Selectmen meetings, so that was difficult, obviously. But I'm pleased that the Finance Committee made the decision to not meet on the same evenings as the Board of Selectmen, and that allows me to go to as many of those meetings as I can. So I think just having that communication there will be helpful going forward. But I'd say on a broader scale, not just with the Finance Committee, but certainly with every volunteer committee, whether elected or appointed in town. I'm certainly committed to meeting with each of them and attending at least one full meeting of each of these committees in the near future. Certainly more, in the longer term, but certainly in the near future, to make sure that we know each other and that we have that level of communication and trust right away, so that when there is an issue to address, when there is a problem to solve together, that the first time we're doing that is not we're not solving a problem together the first time we're talking, but we already know each other and have that level of trust and have that communication level. So, in addition to the finance committee and the board of selectmen, obviously, have already met with what's effectively our capital planning committee, have attended a school committee meeting, have met with the board of health, and intend to continue that interaction with board members and boards and committees to increase that level of communication.
We mentioned earlier in regards to strife issues in regards to school. The school. I know that the school, over the years, I should say, the shared district has wanted to do more as far as funding. And that's what that comes in the form of the annual assessments. Um, have we learned what the annual assessment is, and what are you learning in regards to what the school district wants to provide for an education and for opportunities for the children, the students that they're looking to educate?
Sure. And one other thing I wanted to mention with respect to the history, I can't stress enough, we've had really strong leaders in both communities, I think, for many years. And I can't stress enough that any kind of stress over the assessments is not, I studied it quite closely, it's not due to any kind of individuals or personalities. And I think it's just institutionally, there's this stress built in because both communities are funding it. So, I think we do have an opportunity now that the assessment and the portion assigned to each community has been resolved in the immediate term anyway. I think we do have the opportunity to work together, collaboratively, just institutionally. Um, I do think so. This past Wednesday, the school committee had their statutorily required budget meeting for fiscal year 2022. There was there was that budget presentation. Obviously, there's going to be some ongoing conversations about what the final number will look like, and part of those conversations also will be about the timing of our town meeting. So as I said, right now our Whitman town meeting is scheduled for May 3rd. I'm going to be working it last Tuesday. That was February 23rd. Received guidance in working with our board of selectmen here in Whitman to lay out a budget schedule, and the pathway forward in preparation for town meeting, whether it's on May 3rd or another day. So to that end, I'm going to be working closely with our town accountant, with the other department heads to formulate a balanced budget and to present it to a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee on April 13th. So I think there's a lot of moving pieces coming together. Certainly, there's that initial budget presentation from the schools, but those conversations will be going on both at the school level and at the town level as we prepare.
I think anybody who has a basic understanding of the budget process, especially on a municipal level, has to understand, or they do understand, that early budgets to right before going on the floor town meeting, are fluid, and things could change depending on agreements and discussions with other people. So that's definitely something that's worth noting in regards to the process itself. I would ask you this, and that is, in the past few years, there have been folks who've asked about a strategic plan moving forward. Is that something that is on your plate, or is that something that is in your purview moving forward in the next year or two?
Yes, absolutely, and I'm really glad you brought that up. As I mentioned, I think that was one reason that I was so excited about coming to Whitman, is that already we're such a strong community. There is such a strong business district here and a cohesive business district, and I think I think one of the things that I really want to focus on is building, having acknowledging that already high level of success and going up even to the higher level. So one of the things that the town meeting did approve funds for is a strategic plan. That strategic planning process has begun. And it's one of the things that certainly over the coming months, we're going to continue to work towards getting a strategic plan. As you may know, Kevin, there was a survey done of members of the community a little while back. It was before my time, obviously, so I'm not precisely sure when it was completed, but obviously that's going to be an important aspect of listening to people and knowing what they want in that strategic plan. But we are certainly moving forward with that process, and that's going to be critical to informing the policy decisions going forward.
Yeah, that was somewhere around 2018, 2019.
That's
That's
right.
when they put the questionnaire together, and they did with in conjunction of Bridgewater State College, and then the information was put forth. That was one of the components moving forward to the strategic plan. As a town administrator, one of the things that I always feel that a town administrator, town manager, some of the things that I feel is their vision for the community. Maybe it might be capital plans or capital projects that are needed in town. Has that been a topic of conversation, whether it's with the Board of Selectmen or with community members or stakeholders?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And I mentioned two things. So we talked about. I'll come back to economic development piece because there are things that I'm starting to formulate there. As far as capital projects go, there have been several areas that have been identified by stakeholders as needing improvement in the town. Most particularly, the possibility of a new middle school on the most likely on the existing site. There is a subcommittee that is looking at that. There were funds passed for a study, and so I think that that's going to be a big thing for the town and town meeting, really ultimately, to decide what to do about a middle school. So in the school district, as folks may know, the towns, with the exception of the high school, the towns are responsible for the capital projects and larger capital projects, including a new building if it's needed in each of their communities. So in this case, that would be a responsibility of the town of Whitman if it is decided, by the town and the policymakers that we want a new school. There is two other projects that have been identified in the near term by stakeholders as needing attention is the DPW barn. I know in seeing it myself, it is in need of some work, whether that means a new facility or major renovation. Certainly, there's a need there, and so that's a conversation we're going to have with the town going forward about what's going to happen there. And in the most immediate term, coming before town meeting again in May, or hopefully we'll be able to hold it in May. But coming forward in the next few months is a sewer force main from since the town of Whitman receives all of its water and sewer, the actual treatment of our sewer and the treatment of our water comes from Brockton. So that there is a need that's been identified that we need to have a large capital project for the sewer force main. So that's the most immediate capital project that we'll be looking at and working with the DPW commissioners in explaining to town meeting and explaining what the project is and what its implication will be for ratepayers in order to do this important project. Well, one other thing I wanted to mention, we've talked about economic development, and again, this is an item ultimately to be decided by the policymakers of the town, right? Which is the Board of Selectmen and ultimately town meeting action in some cases by the town as a whole, the legislative body. But one thing that's certainly on my agenda to bring forward and to provide some options on is what the town wants the area around the commuter rail station to look like. That's certainly a conversation we want to have with the stakeholders, with the policymakers of the town, but also the landowners in that area and the neighbors in that area about what we want that to look like. And if development is desirable from the stakeholders there, what kinds of state grants and state opportunities we can attract to build up that area economically.
We're just about out of time, and if you're just tuning in, we're speaking with Lincoln Heineman. He is Whitman's Town Administrator. Anything we have not touched upon, Lincoln? We want to make sure you take a couple of moments to address while we have the cameras rolling.
Sure. Well, I think the most important thing is again, I know there have been um, some conversations, some levels of strife with, particularly with the school district in the past. I just want to reiterate, I think we have a great opportunity to move forward positively together. To educate the town's children to move forward economically and to come out of this COVID-19 pandemic stronger. And so I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be working here in Whitman and to be part of these solutions going forward. I'd love to give out my direct dial line. People can call me anytime, and it'd be great to connect with folks. If people have a concern or a question or a problem, I'm here to help and help get folks pointed in the right direction. So that number is 781-618-9704. Give me a call. If I happen not to pick up, leave me a message. I'll be sure to get back to you, and look forward to working with everybody in Whitman. And thanks very much for having me on and giving me this opportunity, Kevin.
And absolutely, and again, I welcome you as before the cameras are rolling. Said to you that as often as you want to come on, whether it's once or twice a year, quarterly, or when there's information that needs to be delivered in a timely manner, that you are welcome to come on this program, Municipal Focus, or even host your own. But I would be, um, I feel it would be a privilege to be able to have you back on and deliver whatever information you have, but to the residents of both Whitman and Hanson. So we thank you.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks very much, Kevin.
You got it. We want to thank you, the viewer at home, for tuning in to a program like this. Again, you've been watching Crosstalk. Until next time, have a good day.